What if I told you that the most intelligent people in history, those with the sharpest minds, the deepest insights, were often not revered, but feared, not just misunderstood, feared. Feared not because they posed a physical threat, but because they saw too much, understood too deeply, questioned too relentlessly. And in a world addicted to comfort and conformity, intelligence, true intelligence, isn't a gift, it's a threat. Schopenhauer once said, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." But what happens when society doesn't want that target to be seen at all? When someone suddenly points out that the emperor has no clothes, the crowd doesn't thank him. They turn on him. Because ignorance is not just bliss, it's protection. Intelligent people dismantle illusions. They expose the myths we live by. And for a society that survives on those myths of merit, of order, of morality, that's terrifying. Take Socrates, the father of Western philosophy. He didn't write books. He simply asked questions, dangerous questions. He challenged the youth of Athens to think for themselves, to reject blind obedience, to examine their beliefs. And what did society do? They gave him hemlock. They killed him, not because he was violent, not because he was corrupt, but because he made people uncomfortable, because he made them think. This is the curse of the intelligent. The more clearly you see the world, the more alienated you become from it. Schopenhauer lived this firsthand. A philosopher far ahead of his time, he saw the world not as a stage of divine order, but as a chaotic, painful struggle of will against will. He believed happiness was a fleeting illusion, and that most of life was suffering wrapped in distraction. To many that sounds bleak, nihilistic even, but to Schopenhauer it was simply honest, and that honesty, it terrified people, because it strips away the comforting lies we tell ourselves, that everything happens for a reason, that we're special, that progress is inevitable. He didn't believe in those things. He believed in silence, in solitude, in art as an escape from the brutality of existence. He rejected the academic establishment, refused to conform to popular ideas. And for that, he was ignored for most of his life. It wasn't until he was old, when the world had changed enough to catch up with his ideas, that he was finally taken seriously. But why does this happen? Why do societies reject the very people capable of seeing through their collective illusions? The answer lies in psychology. Humans are social creatures. We thrive on group identity, shared beliefs, common values. When someone intelligent steps in and questions those values, it doesn't just feel like criticism, it feels like betrayal. It triggers something primal, a threat to the tribe. That's why whistleblowers are hated, not just by the systems they expose, but by the people they try to protect. Because deep down, we don't want to see the rot. We'd rather live in denial. Intelligent people, especially those with philosophical minds, don't allow that. They illuminate the shadows. They force society to confront what it would rather ignore. But this kind of awareness comes at a cost. The intelligent often suffer from depression, anxiety, existential dread, not because they're weak, but because they feel too much, see too much. The veil is lifted, and what they see isn't always beautiful. It's war, greed, hypocrisy, loneliness. Schopenhauer didn't shy away from this. He embraced it. He believed that to live honestly was to suffer, and the only true escape was through art, music, and the surrender of the will. In today's world, intelligence is celebrated only when it's useful, when it makes money, when it builds apps or wins arguments. But intelligence that questions the foundations of our lives, that's dangerous. It's easier to brand it as arrogance, or madness, or negativity. Because to take an intelligent person seriously means we have to change. And change is hard. It threatens the very structure we've built our lives around. This is why people like Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, and Kierkegaard were lonely, misunderstood, feared, not because they were wrong, but because they were right in ways most people weren't ready to hear. Nietzsche warned us of the last man, a future human who avoids discomfort, lives for pleasure, and fears greatness. We are becoming that man. Comfort has become our God, convenience our religion, and intelligence, true, radical, introspective intelligence, is heresy. We scroll, we consume, we distract, all to avoid confronting the terrifying truths that philosophers like Schopenhauer laid bare. Truths about death, about meaninglessness, about the fragility of our egos and the absurdity of our systems. Yet, in all this darkness, there's a strange kind of light. Because the same intelligence that reveals the horror of the world also reveals its beauty. It's the intelligent mind that sees not just the futility of life, but also its absurd poetry. It's the intelligent mind that creates art, composes symphonies, writes novels that touch the soul. Schopenhauer, for all his pessimism, deeply loved music. He believed it transcended language, that it spoke directly to the will, to the soul beneath the noise. He wasn't trying to destroy hope. He was trying to free it from illusion. That's the paradox. Intelligent people may seem dark, but often they're the ones searching most desperately for light, and not the artificial light of platitudes and self-help slogans, but the real light, the kind that only comes after you've walked through the abyss. So yes, intelligent people scare society, because they see through its masks. They don't play by its rules. They remind us of everything we're trying to forget. But maybe that's exactly why we need them. Not to lead, not to command, but to remind us that the world is bigger, stranger, and more tragic than we pretend. And that maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it beautiful. So the next time you meet someone whose thoughts unsettle you, whose questions disturb your comfort, pause. Ask yourself, are they dangerous, or are they simply honest? Because in a world built on illusion, the truth will always feel like an attack. But maybe that's not something to fear. Maybe it's something to follow. If this video challenged your thoughts, if it lit a match in a dark corner of your mind, consider subscribing. And ask yourself, what illusions am I still holding on to? Thanks for watching.